British. They were trade partners. The British started inciting those Indians to commit attacks on the American frontiers. That was part of what was taking place with the War of 1812 out here in this region. There were other factors. There were sea battles, there was impressment of our sailors. The British were trying to tell us who we could and couldn't trade with, and President Madison did not like that. Oftentimes you'll hear the War of 1812 referred to as President Madison's War. He is the one that declared war on the British. It happened in 1812. Incidents leading up to this started taking place around 1811. In fact, one of them was not very far from here. It was over at Lafayette, West Lafayette, Indiana, where Purdue University is, which is just across the Illinois border, straight east of Danville, about an hour and a half east of Danville, Illinois. Up in that area, Shawnee Indians, led by the Shawnee Prophet Tecumseh, that's a Shawnee Prophet and his brother Tecumseh, were Native Americans. They were trying to get together Native American bands to fight together against the Americans' movement west. The Americans kept moving further and further west, taking over the states of the old the states that were in the Northwest Territory. These would be the states of Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin. We were the 5 states in the Northwest Territory. As the white settlers were moving in, the Native Americans were moving out. The tribes were moving slowly west and south and kept moving around the Great Lakes region. This was creating a lot of unrest among the tribes, so there was a lot of battling among the tribes as well. The British started encouraging the Indians to commit atrocities on the American settlers, and that's what was happening during the War of 1812 out here in Illinois. Our territorial governor, we were a territory, the state of Illinois was a territory in 1811. Our territorial governor was a man named Ninian Edwards. He kept writing to Congress asking for help. You need to send soldiers out here. We need to arm the people so that they can fight back these little Indian attacks that keep taking place in our region. The same thing was happening with Governor Selby in Kentucky, and Governor Howard in Missouri, and Governor William Henry Harrison over in Indiana territories. These were all the territorial governors who were out here in this region. They were asking for help, and there was no standing army that could be sent out here to do it. The Battle of Tippecanoe took place at, as I said, Lafayette, Indiana in the fall of 1811. What happened in that incident is they realized that the British were in fact directly aiding the Indians. They had British arms, and they were the ones that were fighting against the Americans. Harrison led an army up there and attacked the Indians there and defeated them at the Battle of Tippecanoe. So this is just prior to the War of 1812. It was one of the incidents here in the Midwest that would lead to it. Now here in southern Illinois, Governor Edwards, after the declaration of war, called for the strengthening of the frontiers. There were just scattered settlements here in southwestern Illinois. This is a map of the state of Illinois. Most of the settlement that was here started right here in the Alton area, went down the Mississippi River, came up to the Ohio and the Wabash Rivers, about as far north as Crawford County or Robinson, Illinois. Throughout this region, right in here, was built a chain of forts just like we're in today. Our fort here in Bond County, Hills Fort, was about the furthest inland and the furthest north. If you draw a line between here, you see we're on the furthest north. Everything from there north was Native American hunting ground in that region, the state of Illinois. Governor Edwards asked for the strengthening of the frontiers. He asked for forts to be built up. And during the War of 1812, there were about 93 forts, similar to what we are in today, that were built throughout this region. About half of them were built over here in the Madison, St. Clair, and Monroe County areas. Quite a few of them up and down this eastern border of the state as well. There was about 40 of them over in that region. Hills Fort was called Hills Fort for Isaac Hill. He'd been sent here very early on, around 1808, by President Jefferson. He was here speculating on land, checking the amount of growth cycles for the land, looking for gold, iron, different minerals and so forth, and keeping a calendar of the events of what was taking place with the weather so they'd see what the growing regions were here in the Northwest Territory. He built this cabin. He would have built a cabin like this within the fort structure. In 1808 he would have built that. In 1812, when the Governor Edwards called for the strengthening of the frontiers, they built up the fort, which means the stockade was built. The log walls were built around it. The blockhouse was added in the corner. We know at Hills Fort there was a second cabin behind this one. What you're in today is a reproduction of what was built down there at that site. This site here for Bond County was located about 6 miles southwest of Greenville. It's down on Cease's Farms, down in that area off the Millersburg Road. So if you go to Smith Grove Church, go about 3 miles south. Down in there is where the fort was. There were 3 forts here in Bond County. This is one of them. Green's Fort, or Jones's Fort, was built a few miles south of that at the site of the Green Cemetery. And the Lindley family fort would have been just a couple of cabins and a little bit of a stockade. It was located out on the Rocky Mountain Road, out where Abe and Judy Devatine lived. They lived on the 10-acre tract that had that. But this was one of the forts that was built in the region. Significant battle did take place there at our fort site.